24. Welcome to Millennium News 24. This is Kim Seabrook, and the top news today: consumer prices jumped 0.8% in April as worries escalate. U.S. consumer prices surged 0.8% in April, pushing the rise in inflation over the past year to the fastest rate in more than a decade, an acceleration that has stirred rising worries about its effect on the economy. The Labor Department reported Wednesday that the price consumers pay for their purchases of everything from food and clothes to new cars rose at a faster pace than last month's 0.6% rise. Over the past 12 months, prices are up 4.2%, the fastest rise since the 12 months ending in September 2008, excluding volatile food and energy. Core inflation jumped 0.9% in April. Concerns about rising inflation sent stocks tumbling on Tuesday, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average falling by more than 470 points, or 1.4%, its worst day since February 26. The big April increase was led by a record 10% surge in the price for used cars and trucks. Second news: COVID-19 pet boom has veterinarians' backlog burnt out, and during the gloomiest stretches of the pandemic, Dr. Deonna Kranz Veterinary Clinic has been a puppy fest, overrun with new four-legged patients. Typically, she gets 3 or 4 new puppies a week, but between shelter adoptions and private purchases, the 2020 COVID-19 pet boom brought 5 to 7 new clients a day to her practice in Raleigh, North Carolina. Many are first-time pet owners. Like many veterinarians across the country, she's also been seeing more sick animals. To meet the demand, vet interviews by us have extended hours, hired additional staff, and refused to take new patients. And they still can't keep up. Burnout and fatigue are such a concern that some practices are hiring counselors to support their weary staffs. Everyone is working beyond capacity at this point, who added evening hours last year. Approximately 12.6 million U.S. households got a new pet last year after the pandemic was declared in March 2020, according to a COVID-19 poll study by the American Pet Products Association. Meanwhile, fewer people relinquished their pets in 2020, so they needed ongoing care, experts said. And as people work from home and spent more time with their pets, they've had more opportunities to notice bumps, limps, and other ailments that could typically go untreated. Vets were already struggling to meet the pre-pandemic demand, with veterinary schools unable to churn out enough doctors and techs to fill that void. Dr. Cran left her North Carolina practice 3 months ago and now oversees 9 veterinary and animal hospital clinics across Utah and Idaho under Pathway Vet Alliance. Banfield Pet Hospital, one of the largest national providers of preventative veterinary medicine, had approximately 500,000 more pet visits in 2020 than in 2019. And the telehealth service more than doubled in volume from March through the end of last year. Thrive, another veterinary hospital primary care group with 110 facilities across the U.S., reported a 20% increase in demand during the pandemic. Both repeated a common refrain: as humans spent more time with their pets, they were more in tune with their ailments, big and small. Clinics have been forced to streamline, having patients fill out forms online or by phone pre-appointment, because hiring additional staff often isn't an option. This industry is growing at a rate that it can't fill all the roles needed to keep up with the increased demand for services, said Pinkins. Veterinary positions are also projected to grow 16% by 2029, nearly 4 times the average of most other occupations. And that's according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Vet tech jobs are expected to increase nearly 20% in the next 5 years. Number of children traveling alone at border eases in April. The number of unaccompanied children encountered on the U.S. border with Mexico in April eased from an all-time high a month earlier, while more adults were found coming without families, authorities said Tuesday. Authorities encountered 17,171 children traveling alone, down 9% from 18,960 in March, according to the U.S. Customs, but still well above the previous high of 11,470 reported in 2019. Overall, the Borders Patrol encounters with migrants on the Mexican border in April were up 3% from 169,000 in March, the highest level since April 2000. The numbers aren't directly comparable because a solid majority of these stopped in April were quickly expelled from the country under federal pandemic-related powers that deny the rights to seek asylum. Expel carries to legal consequences, so many people tried to cross multiple times. Border Patrol encounters with people coming in families fell in similar proportion to unaccompanied children. Down 10% to 48,000 from 53 in March, slightly more than one of three families encountered results in pandemic-related expulsions. Biden has exempted unaccompanied children from expulsion, allowing them to stay in the U.S. while pursuing asylum claims. Families with young children are also often released in the U.S. while their cases wind through the bottlenecked immigration court system. The government has made big strides moving children from grossly overcrowded Border Patrol facilities to U.S. Department of Health and Human Services shelters, which are more suited to long-term stays until children are placed with sponsors in the United States, typically parents or close relatives. Mexico has been reluctant to take back Central American families with young children, especially in Tamaulipas state bordering Texas, Rio Grande Valley, the busiest corridor for illegal crossings. Many are being released in the U.S. while their asylum cases are considered by immigration authorities. Some families are flown to El Paso and San Diego to be expelled from there, where Mexican authorities are more willing to take them. And in community news, we're going to bring our guest, and her name is Catherine Morrow from Harlem, New York. Catherine Morrow is a representative in the Harlem community, and she deals with teenagers, political issues, our youth, especially in the community. So let's get in contact with Ms. Catherine. Catherine, how are you today?
Hey, how are you, Miss Debra? What's going on?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate that.
So I know you wanted to discuss some things as far as educational, prior pandemic and pandemic. So if you can, just give us a little insight first on who you are, what you do, and some information on what's going on with our kids today.
Well, basically, people always ask me, like, what do I do? And sorry about that. Ask me about, like, what do I do in the community? And I just tell them that I'm a youth investor. And that's like pertaining to assisting the youth to work through, I guess, their school life. I am now rearing a teenager, so we have, certain issues going on in the community in regards to education, and of course, worldwide, coronavirus and the police brutality and, the violence. But people, sometimes drop the ball in regards to our youth and regarding the educational system, which is not really being equally, being equally divided amongst, black and brown bodies and their white counterparts. We have a larger rate of our black and brown babies who are falling behind because they didn't get the proper devices that they needed in the beginning of the school year of 20 into 2021. Like the Wi-Fi devices, their laptops, and that sort. So we have a great deal of them failing. And what I'm doing with them is conversing with them to see, like, how can we keep the conversations going with our youth. Right. So they'll let us know what they need, because once they shut down, then we won't really know what to do. We'll just be still running around in a circle. And what I try to do is get more parents involved and caretakers involved in saying, hey, we need to stop and pause our busy lives and find out what these young beings need. They're suffering more than we are. We're all suffering at one kind of level, but they're really taking a big hit.
Absolutely, I could definitely see that. My child is of age, so he's not dealing with the school system online and things of that nature with the pandemic. So how's the difference between what it was before and what it is now? Are there any changes over the past year since the pandemic started?
What I, yes, it has. What I see is that it's like if your child is not used to being on the outside, being a creative individual on the outside. Maybe perhaps they thrive with the remote learning. I have a child who's the complete opposite. He's not thriving with remote learning because he's used to being outside in the community around people, and that's where I guess he would get his energy and his vibration from. And then we're dealing with like mental health and I guess, the social and emotional well-being of the teenagers. So,
Absolutely.
but before, I mean, being in a classroom setting, school building with your peers, with your teachers, and having that tangible education where you can go one-to-one instead of having a Zoom or StreamYard and things of that sort. And then, even though you might have a disagreement, at least you guys are right there. See, now we have the technology. We have a lot of glitches going on. So a lot of grades are not being reported properly.
Wow.
Any mishaps that need to be addressed is like you're talking talking to something other than a human being that has emotion. So a lot of kids cannot grasp that. I'm a charter school parent, so they're taught to be team and family. So when you can't get a hold of that team and family, it's like a pullback. So yeah, a lot of our black and brown bodies are not really thriving in a remote situation. I mean, especially if you haven't been taught to use more of your creative self.
Right.
Like
So what is it that the parents can do? Is there somewhere remote or in person that we can attend and discuss these issues so that we can have some resolution with our teens?
well, I'm part of an organization called Students First New York. Students First New York is a grassroots organization, I believe, has been around, I would say 9, 10 years already. They're like the school police dog. Students First New York.org. You can look up their information. I mean, there's community educational councils that you could become involved in. Look up Community Educational Council, that's COUNCIL.
Okay.
And they always are looking for parents to be involved in regards to policy and reform of the school settings.
Got it. All right. Any other information you want to give us on maybe what you're doing in the community now, and maybe there's some people that can help or want to volunteer or be a part of?
Well, actually, I just was asked to be COO of the Domestic Violence Organization right here in the community of Harlem. We are
Awesome.
phenomenal women. We are looking for interns, preferably younger interns like senior high school, first 2 year of college. Someone that just wants to get exposure in regards to like the backdrop of domestic violence and certain different kind of violences besides gun violence. Also, I became creative director / partner of a radio podcast sounding, I guess, station called
Okay.
Innocent Voice. And, we try to come on the air like 3, 4 times a week and talk about the current events of what's going on in the community and abroad and just keep people abreast on what's happening in Harlem in regards to like everything, being that we have organizations who are on the ground fighting for rights of black and brown bodies everywhere.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your input today on, community and our teens and the school and the COVID and the pandemic, and also what everything that you are doing to help our community in more than one way. We appreciate you. Her name is on the screen, Catherine Marrow. Please follow her on Facebook. And if there's anything you may want to be a part of, just reach out to her and she can assist you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome, and we'll speak soon, Catherine. Have a great day.
You too.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next in news, let's see, what do we have going on? Ex-New York City officer charged with bribery sent racist text. The former officer pleaded non-guilty on Tuesday at an arraignment where a judge agreed he should remain behind bars. His lawyer declined comment afterward. The court papers accused Smith and current officer Robert Hassett of hatching a scheme started in 2016 to take thousands of dollars in bribes to summon a specific tow truck company to car accident scenes. Instead of using a system meant to distribute the business at random, Smith allegedly recruited a second current officer, Heather Buch, to join the kickback scam after he retired. Smith and Hassett also were accused of using restricted police databases to run the names of car accident victims and provide the information to a person who sold it to physical therapy businesses and personal injury attorneys to solicit business. The middleman paid the officers about $7,000 for information on more than 100 people, the court paper said. As alleged, the defendants shamelessly violated their oaths of office and the public trust by trading their badges for cash payments, acting U.S. Attorney Mark Lesko said in a statement. Smith, 44, was additionally facing charges. He agreed to transport a kilo of heroin for drug traffickers after his retirement. He was paid $1,200 in a deal to carry his gun and retired police identification for the task. Hassett, 36, and Bush, 34, were to appear in court by teleconference later Tuesday. The names of the attorneys were not immediately available. And next, Trump administration officials to testify on January 6th. The riot, 2 senior Trump administration's officials plan to defend their actions during the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol. Defense Secretary Christopher Miller standing behind every decision he made that day. Miller will tell the House Oversight Committee on Wednesday that he was concerned before the insurrection that sending troops to the building could fan fears of a military coup and cause a repeat of the Delhi Kent State shootings, according to a copy of prepared remarks obtained by us here at the station. His testimony in the latest in a series of congressional hearings centered on the riot is aimed at rebutting broad criticism that military forces were too slow to arrive, even as pro-Trump rioters violently breached the building and stormed inside. The Defense Department was an extremely poor record in supporting domestic law enforcement, including during civil rights and Vietnam War protests in the 60s and 70s, and the fatal shooting 51 years ago of 4 students at Kent State University. Miller says in his prepared remarks, "I was committed to avoiding repeating these scenarios," he says. Miller also denies that former President Donald Trump criticized for failing to forcefully condemn the rioters, had any involvement in the Defense Department's response. Our hearing will provide the American people the first opportunity to hear from top Trump administration officials about the catastrophic intelligence and security failures that enabled this unprecedented terrorist attack on our nation's capital, the committee's chair, Representative Carolyn Maloney, said in a statement. Rosen, for his part, is expected to tell lawmakers that the Justice Department took appropriate precautions ahead of the riot by putting tactical and other elite units on standby after local police reports indicated that 10,000 to 30,000 people were expected at rallies and protests. Miller's testimony will amount to the most thorough explanation of Pentagon actions after months of criticism that it took hours for the National Guard to arrive. In his prepared remarks, he defends his resistance to a heavy military response as being shaped in part by public hysteria about the possibility of a military coup or concerns that the military might be used to help overturn the election results. Fearful of amplifying those suspicions, as well as the possibility a soldier might be provoked into violence in a way that could be perceived as an attack on the First Amendment activities. He says and agreed days before the insurrection to deploy soldiers only in areas away from the Capitol. No such thing was going to occur on my watch, but those concerns and hysterias about them nonetheless factored into my decisions regarding the appropriate and limited use of our armed forces to support civilian law enforcement during electoral college certification. Miller says my obligation to the nation was to prevent a constitutional crisis. Although he says the Defense Department should not play a lead role in the domestic law enforcement, he felt it is important to initiate planning discussions out of concerns about a lack of coordination and information sharing between other agencies. In his opening statement, though, Miller says he believes Trump encouraged the protesters, but declines to say if Trump bears responsibility. He recounts a January 5th conversation when Trump, impressed by a crowd of supporters at a rally that day, told him 10,000 troops would be needed the next day. The call lasted fewer than 30 seconds, and I did not respond substantively, and there was no elaboration. I took his comment to mean that a large force would be required to maintain order the following day. Yeah. Next, the number of injured in Russia's school shooting rises to 23. 23 people remain hospitalized on Wednesday following a school shooting in the Russian city of Kazan, which killed 9 people, including 7 youngsters. All 23 were in stable condition Wednesday morning, the authorities said, though at least 8 people, 3 adults and 5 children, were to be transferred from Moscow for treatment. A gunman on Tuesday morning attacked a school in Kazan, a city 430 miles east of Moscow, sending students hiding under their desks or running out of the building. 9 people, 7 students, and 2 school employees were killed. The attacker, identified only as a 19-year-old, was arrested. The authorities gave no immediate details on a motive, but said he legally owned a firearm. Wednesday was declared a day of mourning in Tarstan, the Russian region of which Kazan is the capital, with funerals of the victims expected to take place. Russian media said the gunman was a former student at the school who called himself a god on his account on the messaging app Telegram and promised to kill a large amount of biomass on the morning of the shooting. Attacks on schools are rare in Russia, and President Vladimir Putin reacted by ordering the head of the country's National Guard to revise regulations on the types of weapons allowed for civilian use. Russian lawmaker Alexander said on Telegram that the suspect in the Kazan attack received a permit for a shotgun less than 2 weeks ago, and that the school had no security aside from a panic button. Authorities did not specify what kind of gun the attacker used. Officials in Kazan said that the school had a door person for security during the daytime, and she was the one who hit the panic button, alerting law enforcement about the attack. Russian officials promised to pay families of those killed 1 million rubles, roughly $13,500 each, and said that the payments will be wired by the end of day Wednesday. And we're going to take a quick break, and I am Kim Seabrook with Millennium News 24, and we'll be right back. And welcome back. Even as some hospitals struggle to find beds for the sick and dying as a state of emergency in Japan, it was extended to Wednesday in more places. Only 1% of the public has been fully vaccinated, even as millions of doses sit unused in freezers, and there's deepening frustration over Suga's request for people to endure more emergency viruses measures amid ramped up planning for the resources draining Olympics, which are about to start in about 2 months. Last month, they declared a state of emergency in Osaka, the center of the current surge in virus cases, as well as in Tokyo and two other areas. On Wednesday, two more areas, Aikai in central Japan and Fukuoka in the south, were placed under the emergency measures. No vaccine, no medication. Are we supposed to fight with bamboo spears? We'll be killed by politics if things remain unchanged, said the critical ad, which showed an illustration of a red coronavirus symbol on a World War II era photo of Japanese children practicing to fight with Nagina sword-shaped sticks. The ad, by Tokyo-based publisher known for its outspoken stance on political and social issues, urged the public to demand that the government end poorly conceived coronavirus measures. We have been deceived. What was the past year for? The publisher said many Japanese people have faced medical and financial problems with little government support. It said that the situation resembles Japan near the end of the war, when the government urged people to fight with sticks and mobilize schoolgirls to train. The ad caused a stir on social media, but there was also a worldwide public interest in a session of parliament in which scores of opposition lawmakers asked Suga how he could guarantee a safe Olympics during an expanded state of emergency. Public frustration has even targeted Japanese swimming star Rikako Aiki, who won a spot at the Tokyo Olympics after recovering from leukemia. Aiki tweeted recently that she has received messages that pained her heart by urging her to oppose the Olympics and not to attend. A petition demanding the cancellation of the Olympics has gained more than 300,000 signatures, and it urges the government to spend the money for the games instead on people in need of financial support because of the pandemic. And escalating Mideast violence bear hallmarks of 2014 Gaza war. Rockets streamed out of Gaza and Israel pounded the territory with airstrikes. Wednesday, as the most severe outbreak of violence since a 2014 war, took on many hallmarks of that devastating 50-day conflict, with dozens killed and no resolution in sight. Pause of gray smoke in Gaza as Israel airstrikes leveled 2 apartment towers and hammered the militant group's multiple security installations, destroying the central police compound. In Israel, barrages of hundreds of rockets fired by Gaza's Hamas rulers and other militants at times overwhelmed missile defenses and brought air raid sirens and explosions echoing across Tel Aviv, Israel's biggest metropolitan area, and other cities. The death toll in Gaza rose to 48 Palestinians, including 14 children and 3 women. More than 300 people have been wounded, including 86 children and 39 women. 6 Israelis, including 3 women and a child, were killed by rocket fire, and dozens of people were wounded. There was no sign that either side is willing to back down, and Prime Minister Benjamin has vowed to expand the offensive, saying this will take time. Hamas's call for a full-scale intifada or uprising, and uprising began in 2000 that lasted more than 5 years. The latest eruption of violence began a month ago in Jerusalem, where heavy-handed police tactics during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan and the threatened evictions of dozens of Palestinian families by Jewish settlers ignited protests and clashes with police. A focal point was the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound and sacred to Jews and Muslims. The Israeli military said militants have fired more than 1,050 rockets since the conflict began, with 200 of them falling short and landing inside. Jonathan Concreus, a military spokesman, said 2 infantry brigades were sent to the area, indicating preparations for a possible ground invasion. Israel has struck hundreds of targets in the Gaza Strip, where 2 million Palestinians have lived under a crippling Israeli-Egyptian blockade since Hamas took power in 2007. Sama, a mother of 4 in Gaza, said she was thrown across her bedroom in a moment of horror by an airstrike on an apartment tower next door. She and her children aged 3 to 14 ran down the stairway of their apartment, block along other residents, many of them screaming and crying. There's almost no safe place in Gaza, she said. Israel and Hamas have fought 3 wars since the Islamic militant group seized power in Gaza from rival Palestinian forces. The conflicts ended after regional and international powers convinced both sides to accept an informal truce. Once again, diplomats are seeking to intervene with Qatar, Egypt, and the United Nations, working to deliver a ceasefire. The UN Security Council also planned to hold its second closed emergency meeting in 3 days, Wednesday, on the escalating violence. In a brief statement, ICC prosecutor Fatou said she had noted with great concern the escalation of violence and the possible commission of crimes under the Rome Statute that has established the court. Concreus, the military spokesman, said Israeli forces have strict rules of engagement, follow international laws on armed conflict, and are trying to minimize civilian casualties. But Israel said it has no choice because Hamas fire rockets from residential areas. Hamas has also come under international criticism over its indiscriminate rocket fire at Israeli population centers. And in entertainment, Jay-Z, Foo Fighters, and Go-Go's in Rock Hall on the first try. Jay-Z, Foo Fighters, and the Go-Go's were elected Wednesday to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, their first time on the ballot, leading a class that also includes Tina Turner, Carole King, and Todd Rundgren. Each will be honored during an induction ceremony in Cleveland on October 30th, before what organizers hope is a full house of fans enjoying live music again. The hall will also welcome LL Cool J, Billy Preston, Randy Rhoads, with Musical Excellence Awards and honor Kraftwerk, Gil Scott-Heron, and Charlie Patton as early influences. With Jay-Z, the hall inducts a 23-time Grammy winner and the first rap artist in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. His discography includes Hard Knock Life, 99 Problems, and Empire State of Mind. He has had 14 #1 albums to his credit after serving Nirvana's center stage with Foo Fighters, becoming one of the few modern rock bands comfortable in the arenas. Their hard-hitting sound produced the hits Best of You, Everlong, and Times Like These. As an all-female band that played their own instruments, the Go-Go's were a relative rarity in the early 80s, and born from Los Angeles punk rock scene, they had a string of melodic hits that included We Got the Beat, Our Lips Are Sealed, and Vacation. Clarence Avant, a former manager, label owner, and concert organizer, is being given the Ahmet Award as a non-performer. His impact on the music industry was highlighted in the 2019 Netflix documentary, The Black Godfather. The induction ceremony, to be held at the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse in Cleveland, will simulcast on SiriusXM and air later on HBO. In the sports, Warriors rally for second straight night. They beat the Suns 122-116, facing the Western Conference 2 winning teams on back-to-back nights. The Golden State Warriors pulled off a pair of impressive victories with superstar Stephen Curry struggling with his shot. Jordan Poole hit a go-ahead three-pointer with 1:43 left. Andrew Wiggins scored the next time down and finished with 38 points, rallying the Warriors past the Phoenix Suns 122-116 on Tuesday. Draymond Green notched his 6th triple-double of the season and 29th of his career, 11 points, 11 assists, and 10 rebounds. And Curry made a 9-foot jumper with 45 seconds left while falling to the floor. A bright finish to his 21-point performance on another tough outing for him, shooting 3-pointers. Golden State, competing with just 8 healthy players, secured a spot in the play-in tournament with Monday's 119-116 win against the Jazz. Then held against a talented Suns team. Devin Booker scored 34 points and knocked down a key three-pointer with 5:25 left for Phoenix, and Paul added 24 points. But the Warriors delivered all the keys played down the stretch. Paul hit a three-pointer with 57 seconds left in the third to get Golden State within 93-88. And that was at the third quarter buzzer against the Utah. The Warriors trailed 98-92 Tuesday to begin the fourth, and Poole hit another three. Poole scored 20 points to wrap up Golden State's finals set of back-to-back as the Warriors won their 4th straight at home. Phoenix led by as many as 16 and began a sizzling 18 for 26, making 7 of 10 threes, which led them to a 43-30 advantage. And this is your news for today. I am Kim Seabrook. And before I do go, I want to just let you guys know that Ramadan does end today. And tomorrow Eid for the whole Muslim world and the Muslims in America. We want to wish you a safe and healthy holiday. And please make sure to stay tuned. You can find us on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon. You can download your apps on your Android and your iPhones, Millennium TV 24. And again, I am Kim Seabrook. Thank you so much for tuning in with me today. And stay tuned for more news coverage on Millennium TV 24. Thank you.